you have a PhD while being outside of the academia. So could you let us know when and how did you decide to do a PhD? What was the topic?
I started my career in London as a localization quality manager for Expedia. And I spent there almost 12 years. I wasn't sure how I could combine doing a PhD with a full-time job at that time that really didn't give me time for anything else. So for some time, I just decided I cannot do it, it's too much. But then at some point, I had a very strong need in my job as a localization quality manager. I had been working as a quality manager already for 5-6 years, and I was seeing that in particular in this topic, it seemed that we were trying to reinvent the wheel. It seemed that our team was doing a lot of things from scratch. There were a lot of decisions that we had to make, and I was always thinking there has to be more knowledge about how to do quality management, especially for bigger companies, multilingual environments, like complex environments. There has to be a way. And I remember doing a lot of research that it was an academic research, and I remember not finding answers or solutions. So that's why at some point my brain had this idea of what if actually I joined both the academia and a professional need to do a PhD that would be not just useful from the academic point of view, but also useful for the industry, so that whatever I discover, whatever I find out by researching what are the practices in translation quality evaluation and management, I can then disseminate that information, and other quality managers in other companies don't need to start from scratch, because maybe they can use part of my research as a way to continue growing. And having that kind of motivation was like what made me think, okay, it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be very difficult to do a PhD at the same time I'm working. But because I was learning and I was able to apply what I was learning in my job, that helped me a lot to continue during the time that I was doing the PhD.
So how did you split your time between your full-time job?
It was hard. I think having my professional experience helped me in my academic endeavors, because at that point, as a quality manager, I had quite a lot of experience doing project management. So I envisioned the PhD as a project.
Yeah.
And everything I had learned on how you take big projects, how you set up timelines, roadmaps, stages, how you manage your time so you can deliver a project by the delivered date. That is how I envisioned my whole PhD. So it is a complex project, very complex project that takes 4 or 5 years. And when you have that experience, as I said, as a project manager, then it's a little bit easier. In my case, because my topic was so specific, translation quality management applied to professional environments, there wasn't a research group that was doing research about that. There were not even many professors that could help me to know how to start my research. So I was pretty much on my own. So because I needed to find those sources on my own, basically, my professional contacts were very useful. So there were some studies on translation quality management or evaluation on the academic side, but they were academic, so they were talking about mostly how to do translation evaluation for different purposes that might not be a professional translator. It could be, for example, for educational purposes of how do you evaluate the quality of a translation within the academia or within a university. So we had that, which was very interesting. Then we had the professional knowledge, so the knowledge that professionals that are doing this have, but that's very specific to their environment, to how they do things. That doesn't mean that it's the best way, but it is interesting. And then there is also another piece of information, which is there are standards, there are norms. So there are different bodies that we're trying to put that knowledge into a guideline, a norm, and a standard. So I was seeing these 3 sources of information limited to their scope and not necessarily communicating to each other or not necessarily taking each other into consideration. So in my PhD, actually, I went over these 3 pillars. My research was to see what each of these different angles were saying about translation quality management and evaluation, and how these three angles could work, especially in a professional environment. And after I finished my PhD, I was ready for new challenges. I think something that happens is that when you dedicate so much time to a PhD and thesis, you finish it and you have so much time. And at least in my case, I
Yeah,
wanted
I
a new
agree.
challenge. I needed a new challenge. I needed something else. But also, I wanted to do something bigger with all the knowledge that I had accumulated. I wanted to build my own quality management strategy. So, in a perfect timing, very perfect timing, I just finished my PhD and I saw a position as a localization quality program manager at Spotify. And and I could feel that when I had the first interviews and I was telling them that I had just finished a thesis on that topic, I could see that they were very impressed, but also very interested, because they could see there was a person there that had spent 5 years investigating and researching on the topic, and that would be able to create a program from scratch with all that knowledge. So it was perfect timing, but also the confirmation that my idea that this was something helpful and useful was actually, I was right. This was something that companies wanted. So I got the job, and then I started working for Spotify.